Welcome in the latest episode of that SEC podcast. I'm your host, Michael Bratton. I go by SEC Mike on Twitter. And I'm joined as always by my cousin Shane, who goes by Big Orange Vols on Twitter. What are you up to, you big Tennessee homer?
Hey, buddy, what's going on?
Oh, man, I'm fired up, Shane, more than usual. Because, of course, we are a week away literally here from SEC Media Days, Nashville. Second time the podcast is going to be there. And, man, it's football season is here. You know what?
Hell yeah, man. I'm looking forward to it as well, brother. We was joking before we got online here about the bearded iris. Just a reminder, we're going to be down there Saturday between 3 and 6. That's Central Time.
Yep.
So that's, 4 to 5 Eastern Time? Doesn't matter. Just show up. Have some cold beers with big cousin Shane and little cousin Mike. Hey, the Flying Hawaiian's going to be there too. So it may just be the three of us, but that's all right. I'm really looking forward to it, brother.
If he's coming all the way from Hawaii, surely some of these fans can get out to Bearded Irish Shane at 101 Van Buren Street, Nashville, Tennessee. It's right near the Top Golf. So, yeah, like Shane said, we'll be there Saturday, July 15th, 3 to 6 Eastern Time. And they got food trucks there, Shane. Of course, They got plenty of beers. So,
yeah,
that's going to be one heck of a time. You know what?
Absolutely. And again, we're just going to be cutting loose. It's going to be laid back. It's nothing formal. It's nothing fancy. We don't do fancy on this podcast. Just come there, hang out with us, shoot the shit, talk a little college football, talk about some pod experiences, whatever you want to talk about. We're just there to hang out and have some fun, brother.
Right. And, hey, Shane, a little announcement here. We've had a ton of people reach out to us that have subscribed, given us reviews. We're still open to everybody that wants to do that. Subscribe and written review on Apple Podcast or Spotify, and subscribe on YouTube, and we'll send you a beer koozie free of charge. Just reach out to us at thatsecpodcast@gmail.com, or reach us via any social media. We'll respond to you. You just send those screenshots over to us. But announcement, Shane, Tennessee, we got about 75 Tennessee people sitting here saying, where the hell's my koozie? They just got in, so they're getting sent out immediately Monday. So just wanted to make that announcement. We got all the SEC teams covered. We had Tennessee. We just ran out, Shane. So plenty of koozies. My mailman's going to hate me by the end of the week. You know what?
Mike doesn't know it, but it's just me sending random, every iPhone I get to, so I get another UT koozie. So joke's on you, Mike. No, again, this is awesome. A lot of fan support. It's kind of funny how that thing went out there. It doesn't take long. Just take a couple of screenshots, send it to thatsecpodcast@gmail. That way we keep up with it. It's not that we don't want it to Twitter and TikTok and all these guys. It's a little bit easier if we could just navigate through the email. So, right. Be sure to get those out, because I want to see, Mike, an abundance of beer shots this Saturday, when college football's in full, if you make it. It's funny how many times these koozies have made it inside stadiums. If you get there and you're drinking a cold beer, throw it up, send it to me and Mike. We'll be sure to retweet it. Yeah,
without a doubt, Shane. And hey, so on this episode, one of the teams fans have been waiting for, where in the hell is our Florida Gator preview, Shane? We're going to get to it. And again, we're Gator homers on this episode, so we're going to be hyping up.
It's going to be a tough one.
Billy Napier. Oh, you got me breaking already, Shane. But before we get to that, we got an outstanding email that I had to get to real quick here, Shane. I believe it was on the Georgia preview, and hell, it's been on every preview basically, Shane. The fact that the SEC is just inundated with these Australian punters. We actually got an email from Australia, Shane. I can't believe people are listening to Australia.
Come on now.
Explaining this Australian punting situation that is taken over from our buddy, cousin Maurice, out there in Australia. I'm just gonna read his email. It's great here, Shane. G'day, Mike. I swear, that's what it says. First off, love the show. Honest, and he's being honest here, Shane. He's letting us know. You're close to my favorite college show. You give old Josh Pate a run for his money, so appreciate that, Maurice. Just explaining the Aussie punter situation. Most of us grow up playing a sport called Australian rules football. AFL is what they call it. He says, just look up AFL highlights. You'll see tons of it. He says, we can all punt it pretty well. It's something we've been doing since we were young enough to kick a football. I'll explain it this way. You know how you play catch with your dad, throwing a ball back and forth? Well, we grew up playing catch with our feet, kicking it to one another. So all the blokes heading across the states to punt for college programs are guys with big legs who didn't quite make it to the pro leagues playing Aussie rules footy. So we got in touch with the academy that we referenced on that Georgia show. He said you could drive to any small town in Australia. There's about 20 guys who could be at least a shitty punter in college football just because we all know how to kick it so well. So they just grew up doing it, Shane. So I just thought that was great. I really appreciate Maurice from Australia clearing that up. But it makes sense when he puts it like that, doesn't it?
I love that, man. I mean, you're not good enough to make it in the AFL, so we're sending you to Tuscaloosa, you know? Do you like Chargers? Because you're driving one now, you know? I love that, man. It's kind of funny thinking about it. You know, you see some of these kids, especially with soccer and stuff, they just do it for such a young age, and that's just why it's been such a disadvantage for certain countries. And now you find out Australia, all they do is punt the ball over there, so it makes sense that all the best are over there.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like, you know, there's a lot of players that, basketball players that are pretty good, but they're, you know, in college and they're not good enough in the NBA. What do they got to do, Shay? They got to go to Europe.
Yeah.
They got to go to China, you know, and I think that's, you know, it makes sense to me. It's soccer players. It seems like U.S., you know, we get the players when they were good in Europe 20 years ago. They're about to retire. They come to America to play soccer. You know what?
Absolutely. Well, I just think it's fascinating, all them punters over there. You always wondered, and I'm glad that we got a cousin out there that actually knows what's going on. And we got one, the land down under. I love it.
All right, Shay, let's get to the Florida preview. And before we get into it, I want to give a shout out one more time to our guys. Shane, they sent me the preview magazine with Nick Knudsen. We had him on recently. Will Miles, he's been on the show a number of times. How I studied to prepare up for this Florida Gators preview, Shane, is I read their preview magazine that they sent to me. You can get a copy of your own over at readandreaction.com. They're not paying me anything to say that, Shane. I'd like it that much. Two great guys over at readandreaction.com. I'll put a link in the show notes for them Florida diehards to get their copy of the preview magazine. If you love the Gators, this is a must-have for your preseason. You know, we all need something to devour during the preseason leading up to these games, and this magazine really covered the Florida Gators well. So let's do as we always do, Shane. Brief recap of last season, 6-7 season for the Florida Gators. Lost in the Las Vegas Bowl to Oregon State, but they had about half their team sitting out for it, so you don't really hold that against them. But, you know, this is going to sound weird to say, Shane, but it almost would have been better off, I feel like, for Billy Napier had they lost in the opener to Utah. Because I think that, you know, with Anthony Richardson going off and fans getting excited about the Billy Napier era, I mean, I think expectations got raised immediately. And then, you know, what was it, a week later, they lose to Kentucky at home.
Yeah.
And it kind of reset, well, maybe we're not as far along as we thought we were. So,
right.
I don't know. So that's a weird way of asking you that question, Shane. But do you think it would have been better for Billy Napier had they lost to Utah in the opener? Or, I don't know. What's your thoughts on that?
That's tough, Mike, because it did a lot of good things. It did put them back on the map, you know.
Right.
A lot of people weren't talking about the Florida Gators going into 22. And then after that game, say what you want, everybody knew who Anthony Richardson was. Everybody knew who the Florida Gators were, and they knew the potential. And I think that was what was so frustrating as an outsider, maybe hell, even to the fans, is that you saw a little glimpse. I mean, you saw it all throughout the season last year, just little flashes of greatness. You mentioned the Utah, but what about Tennessee? You know, that thing went down to the wire. We had, 500 yards passing? Yep. It's like, okay, well, now the Florida's just moving a little slow. They're just a little inconsistent if they could figure that out. So I think that was the most frustrating part. Not so much the Utah win. It was just the ups and downs throughout the entire season.
Yeah, and really that was highlighted by pretty much losing to every rival on your schedule, Shane. Georgia, of course, Florida State, Tennessee. I mean, they lost to LSU. They lost all of them. So I think that's the first step for Billy Napier's. You're not going to probably beat all those teams this year unless you have one hell of a year. You're just not going to beat all of them. So you got to flip about half of those, I think, and then look towards year 3 to potentially win as many rivalry games as you possibly can. But let's start with the coaching staff, Shane. Billy Napier, of course, year 2 in Gainesville. He's got an outstanding overall record, Shane. He's 46-19, Sun Belt champion 2021, 2-2 in bowl games. He was 40-12 at Louisiana, just 6-7, of course, at Florida. He was 1-2 against top 10 teams last year. But overall, Shane, this is rough. 2-9 against top 25 competition. And, of course, 3-5 last season as an SEC coach, beating Missouri. A&M, that was probably their best win. Maybe South Carolina. That was a hell of a win. But then you lost to Kentucky, Tennessee, LSU, Georgia, and the biggest black eyes, Vanderbilt. But hell, Kirby Smart lost to Vanderbilt his first year too. So Nick Saban lost to ULM his first year. So I mean, a lot of these coaches lose their year 1. It's year 2 is when you really, I think, can judge one of these SEC coaches, Shane. But this was a jarring stat because entering his first season at Florida, this is something that we highlighted. Billy Napier was 16-3 in one-score games at Louisiana. That's unheard of. That's ridiculously good. That's an indication of a great coach. But last season, Shane, 3-3 in one-score games, and that's obviously it's average. I mean, that's where an average coach is in the SEC, Shane. 3-3. So we got to find out, and maybe we will this fall. Will he be closer to the 16-3 coach in one-score games, or is he really just a 500 coach in the nation's toughest conference? I don't know. That remains to be seen. But I know it's early, Shane. It's just 1 year. But what's your main takeaways of seeing Billy Napier coach Florida team just his first year in Gainesville?
You know, it's so hard to judge first-year coaches when they come in. And you look over there at Brian Kelly and what he was able to do with LSU. That's the comparison you're getting. SEC West champ, you know? And I don't think that's fair because when you come in, a lot of times you're duct taping, you're bubble wrapping this hot mess. I mean, you got to remember why he's there. He was there because another coach got fired. You know, this program wasn't winning national championships when he rolled in. So it is a rebuild. And that's one thing we knew was going to happen with Billy. I mean, he wanted to gut this thing all the way down to the studs, you know what I'm saying? And then build this thing up. But this makeshift team, you know, if you don't have it, brother, if you don't pick the right pieces in the portal, or if you lose the right, you know, or if you got a little cancer in that locker room, it lingers throughout the season. And I feel like that's kind of what we had, just a combination of lack of depth, lack of experience. And you can't, I don't want to put all that on Coach Napier because, you know, when I'm looking at a coach, especially a new coach, it's one thing to lose, but it's another if he's not rebuilding. And I know we're going to get to it, brother, but you got to say what you want, man. The kid can recruit, and they're bringing in talent. And I think that's the optimism that we're getting down there in Gainesville. Like, hey, shit's been tough for a couple of years, but we've got a brighter future if we could just keep playing our cards right.
Yeah, and I think the toughest thing for Billy Napier, Shade, and none of this is his fault, but these are like the toughest schedules I've ever seen Florida play in their history. Compound that by the fact that your biggest rival just won back-to-back national championships. LSU is seemingly on the rise. Tennessee, Kentucky, South Carolina all on the rise. Oh, yeah, your other arch rival, Florida State. I know we don't believe in them, but a lot of people do, and they're going to be preseason top 10. That's just, again, that doesn't have anything to do with Napier, but fans I don't think they look at it that way. If all those teams are good and Florida's not, they're going to say, well, hell, let's bring in someone that can steer this ship around. But I think you hit on the most crucial part, Shane. He's there for a reason, and it's because the last guy did such a bad job with roster management, and so far, Billy Napier is off to a great start rebuilding this roster. So
Yeah.
we got to give him time to get his guys in there and see what he can do with them. And the coaching staff, Shane, mostly intact this year. The big one, the defensive coordinator, Austin Armstrong, lost Patrick Toney, last year's coordinator, took an assistant job with I believe the Arizona Cardinals in the NFL. Austin Armstrong, Shane, he was defensive coordinator at Southern Miss the last 2 years. Last season, Shane, how about this? Southern Miss ranked 3rd in the country tackles for loss, 5th in the country in sacks, 7th in the country in interceptions, and 3rd in 4th down defense. So some numbers there that suggest this is one hell of a hire, Shane, and many Alabama people, Nick Saban hired this guy to be his linebackers coach for about 9 days before Billy Napier stole him away. They were wishing that Nick Saban named this guy the defensive coordinator, Austin Armstrong. So 29-year-old, when he was at Southern Miss, Shane, he was the youngest defensive coordinator in all of college football. Now he's the youngest coordinator in the SEC. If they got themselves the next guru here on the defensive side of the ball, who knows? Florida, maybe we're all underrating what he can do with this Gators defense.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, you could spin that a million ways, and I love it. I think they got a hell of a hire here, Mike. But I want to ask you a question about the coaching. Were you surprised there wasn't more turnover here, or the speculation of bringing in? Because I'm not saying this was all Billy's number one guys that came in last year, but it just felt like we may have saw more turnover, but we didn't. Are you surprised about that?
Yeah, a little bit, because I remember when Napier got hired, there was a lot of praise for this coaching staff, and a lot of the guys have NFL experience, and particularly the offensive line. They got 2 offensive line coaches, Shane. They're one of the few that's got 2, but they worked wonders. Remember, under Mullen, I mean, this offensive line was a train wreck.
Right.
They were one of the strongest offensive lines in the SEC last year. So, yeah, I mean, I think you make a good point keeping this staff together. I mean, I think that's another reason to like what Billy Napier's doing. I mean, again, he lost his coordinator to the NFL. He lost his receivers coach to the NFL. So what's he do? Turn around and hire Billy Gonzalez, who was the receivers coach under Mullen and Urban Meyer. So this is his 3rd time as Florida's receivers coach. You literally could not get a guy that knows what he's doing better in Gainesville than old Billy Gonzalez to coach your receivers. So I think, hell, most of the receivers on the roster were recruited by Billy Gonzalez. You know what?
Well played. Well played.
But so let's focus next, Shane, on the returning production for the Florida Gators. And this is less than ideal here, Shane, on the offensive side of the football. 6% of the passing yards are back from last season. Jack Miller led the way with 180 passing yards. But we got an outstanding rushing attack, Shane. 64% of the rushing attack is back, led by Montrell Johnson, who led the team in rushing. He's back. He had 841 yards last year. Receiving yards, 47% back. Ricky Pershaw led the team. He's back at 661. But only, depending on how you slice it, 1 or 2 starters back on the offensive line. So a lot of change on the offensive side of the ball, and that's not necessarily a bad thing because they were just so inconsistent last year. But a big reason why a lot of people got question marks is just the lack of continuity outside of anywhere other than the running back position and a couple receivers.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I'm really excited about this running back room, and we're going to get to that. But like you said, we didn't know the names last year coming in with this offensive line. So I'm not hitting the panic button by no means. I feel like they got a little bit more depth this season, which I think is going to help out. But, and you got 2 coaches coaching them up, you know what I'm saying? You get a lot of one-on-one coaching here. I think we'll be fine on that side. But we're definitely going to need some dudes to step up. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. And it's evident, Shane, by just looking at the transfer portal. A lot of guys, I don't want to say jumping ship, but maybe just not fits for what Billy Napier wants to do. And considering, how bad the season went last year, that's not necessarily a bad thing because you want more guys bought in than you want just to have on your roster that aren't contributing. The Gators, Shane, had 29 guys exit via the portal. I think the biggest impact, probably the receiver Xavier Henderson. He led Florida in catches last season. He's now at Cincinnati. The tight end Nick Elskis, now he's at South Carolina. So that hurts you. A couple offensive linemen, Shane. Michael Tarquin, now he's at Southern Cal as a projected starter. Joshua Braun, now at Arkansas, projected starter. Ethan White, injury status, but he entered the transfer portal. 3 running backs, another receiver, tons of linemen across the board, tons of players hitting the portal, but not a lot of impact players. I think that's more key than the overall number, so that's something to consider. Now, as for guys they're bringing in, Shane, brought in 12 transfers led by the quarterback Graham Mertz, who we anticipate will be the starting quarterback from Wisconsin. He's 59% passer in his career at Wisconsin, 5,400 passing yards, 38 touchdowns, 26 interceptions. Not much of a runner, Shane, minus 21 rushing for his career. So kind of the opposite of old Anthony Richardson. You know what?
Yeah. Well, I don't think that's a bad thing, Mike. I really don't,
Yeah.
I think, again, we're talking clean slate here, and I like some of the pieces they added.
Right, and with these, like you said, we'll get to these running backs we're excited to talk about. We don't need a quarterback to run the ball with these backs we got here.
That's right.
Now, one guy creating waves down there, though, is another transfer from Memphis, Shane. Defensive lineman Cam Jackson, 51 tackles, 5 tackles for loss, 2.5 sacks at Memphis. The stats are not going to blow you away with him, but he's your classic interior run stuff and, absorb some blockers type. So Cam Jackson, likely going to be a day one starter. Linebacker from Ohio State, Taraj Mitchell, 63 tackles, 7 tackles for losses, a member of the Buckeyes. He could be a starter at linebacker. Safety R.J. Moten from Michigan, 66 tackles, 2.5 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks, 2 picks. And then these guys could all be starters right away, Shane, on the offensive line. That's why I'm not panicking too much with the transition there. Kenyatta Goodwin from Kentucky, the former 5-star. Damian George from Alabama. He's got some starting experience, I believe. Micah Mazuka from Baylor. He was a starter at Baylor last couple of years. So if we could plug all these guys in, that's 3 starting spots potentially. And they may be upgrades for the Florida Gators on the offensive line. Running back from Tulane, add him to the mix, Shane. Cameron Carroll, 1,600 rushing yards, 19 touchdowns in his career at Tulane. So we got some nice pieces here to bolster, and they really had to do this. They had to add via the transfer portal to add depth across the board.
Well, that's all this is, Mike. This is depth. This is shit, Mike. It's cliche, and I hate it, but it's a rebuild, and it's going to take a couple of years. I don't think we just kill it immediately, but you're setting the groundwork here. You're building this thing up, and it's going to take a while with Wade. Billy likes to do things, and you got a lot of young talent coming in, and this is these bodies that you're talking about here. A lot of that is buying time for some of these young studs to figure it out, to put some weight on, to learn the playbook, to be impact players. So it's a little bit slow, but I'm telling you, if you could just be patient down there, the Florida Gators are going to be back, man.
Yeah, and it all starts with recruiting, Shane. They signed the number 14 recruiting class in the country. That was 5th best in the SEC. Some of the guys that could make an impact right away, Shane, the number 4 interior offensive lineman, Roger Kearney. The number 5 defensive lineman, Kelby Collins. The number 7 corner, Jakeem Jackson. The number 8 safety, Dejon Johnson. And then 3 receivers. Hearing a lot of buzz about these guys, Shane. The number 20 receiver, Aiden Mizell. The 21 receiver, Eugene Wilson. And actually, this guy is the lowest rated of the bunch, but the number 56 receiver, Andy Jean.
Yeah.
He may start. I mean, I'm hearing he's that good, Andy Jean. So I think credit Billy Napier and their staff for identifying a prospect that, I mean, he was still a 4-star. I mean, let's not say he's awful or anything like that. But, I mean, they're going to need help from a lot of these guys. And I can't wait to see them on the field this fall.
Yeah, it's always been kind of funny. You know, it's always been running backs that had that immediate impact, but you're seeing more and more receivers come in already college ready. I mean, you look at some of these academies and camps that they're going to, they're working with professionals 24/7. So you're starting to see some of these younger kids pop earlier in the season.
Right, and I think that's just in high school, more teams passing the ball. You know what? I mean, remember when we were in high school, I think the quarterback for our team, he had more interceptions on the year than he had pass attempts because they just never threw the damn ball, you know?
Dude, I could count on one hand how many times we would throw a ball during the game. So it would drive me damn nuts because every time we do it, it's productive. I'm like, well, why don't we why don't we do it again? You know, gotta be careful in case coach is listening, you know. Still love you, man.
All right, Shane, let's rank the offensive position groups. And, of course, this is going to be easy at the top of the list. It's got to be them running backs.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, far and away, brother. If it's like A, and then now we're getting down to C. You know, we're going to skip B here. So, that room's loaded. And there's a reason why those kids left, because it's going to be a while before they touch the field.
Yeah, thanks to Montrell Johnson and Trevor Etienne. They were both outstanding last season. They'll be outstanding again. The transfer from Tulane I mentioned, Shane Cam Carroll, 1,600 rushing yards. That's a hell of a third stringer to have. And then they signed the number 20 running back in the country, Tayshawn Webb. So we go 4 deep here, and that's great because that's where Florida's offensive identity is, running the football. We could have several studs here. You know what?
Yeah, and they're different. You know, I watch his brother, right, that plays for Jacksonville.
Yep.
ETN. It's just funny how dynamic he is, and his brother. It's almost like watching. It's like they're switching shoulder pads. It's after the game he goes to Jacksonville to play or something. I don't know, but I just love watching these guys because they've got so many different things that they can do. It's not the same build down there is what I'm trying to say.
Right. And next on my rankings list here, Shane, I'm going with the offensive line, even though we're not returning a ton of guys with experience, Shane. And I have listed the heights and weights for all these guys because you're going to see a theme, Shane, here. Billy Napier has got him a type. They're one starter returning the center, Kingsley Uguanakan. I hope I said that right. Started all 13 games last year, Shane. 6'3", 300 pounds for a center. That's pretty damn big. Guys they got returning, though. Austin Barber, breakout star potential, 5 starts last year. He was freshman All-American at the tackle position. Shane, 6'6", 311 pounds.
Come on now.
Bringing back Richie Leonard, 1 start last year, 6'4", 314 pounds. Cameron.
How big was he?
314 pounds.
No, how tall? I'm sorry.
6'4".
Okay.
But now
that's how big I was supposed to be. Then I stopped, started going out this way.
He's the small one of the bunch, Shane.
I'll tell you, man. I've never been so hurt. I blew my knee out freshman year, and I'm going there and getting it looked at, and the doctor made a comment to my mom. He says, "Well, his growth plates are already set," and I was just like, "What? This is as tall as I'm going to be? How can I play for the Tennessee Vols at 5'11", you know? It's too late to take up golf, you know? Damn it.
All right, how about this? Now we're getting into the real beef here. Shane Cameron Watts, 6'8", 362 pounds.
Oh, golly.
Jordan Herman, 6'8", 372 pounds. And then here's the transfers they brought in. Shane Kenyatta Goodwin from Kentucky, 6'8", 353 pounds. Damian George from Bama, 6'6", 369 pounds. Micah Mazuka from Baylor, 6'5", 329 pounds. So they like them big down there at Gainesville, Shane.
Golly, say a prayer for that cooking staff down there working all the time. You know? It's like when I walk into a Chinese buffet, oh, no, we closed, you know? They're saying that to these boys.
All right, next on my list here, Shane, is the receivers. So we got a couple quality guys here. Ricky Pearsall, he really came on at the tail end of the season. Jaquavion Frazier's breakout star potential. Marcus Burke as well. Caleb Douglas made some plays last year, and Ty Bowman. Those are the guys that are coming back. And then those 3 freshmen, Aiden Mizell, Eugene Wilson, Andy Jean. I don't think, this is the deepest room in the SEC by any means. But again, with our identity and what we're trying to do, I don't think we need to be in Gainesville right now.
No, that's not the recipe that he's working with. Now, again, 2-3 years from now, maybe we're going to need this receiver room to step up. We just we need 1 or 2 guys. We need 1 or 2 guys to just, hey, I'm ready. I'm SEC ready, and I can make big plays. That's what we need here in that room.
Yeah. So next I got quarterback, Shane, with Graham Mertz leading the way, the Wisconsin transfer, Jack Miller, former Ohio State transfer that we saw in the bowl game, and then the youngin Max Brown. So this is another unit that's a little bit lacking some depth, lacking some experience aside from Graham Mertz, he had a ton of experience at Wisconsin, but as they find out quickly, Shane, experience outside the SEC it ain't quite the same when they come down here, is it?
No, it is not. And yeah, I was just thinking because I still get caught into that quarterback ranking list you put out there, and I want to emphasize when you put Mertz there at 14, it was more about question marks, wasn't it? I mean, obviously you could see him moving up this list pretty damn quick.
Yeah. It's everything involved, Shane. I just don't, given the receivers, given the inexperience on the offensive line, we're about to get to tight ends. That's another huge question mark. I don't know that the targets are going to be there.
Yeah.
If they're running for 300 yards a game and they're passing for 100, how can we can't rightfully say, well, that's the best damn quarterback in the league. You know what I mean?
Right.
It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, I get you. I'm with you. I see where you're going.
Yeah. So again, hating on the tight ends, but for good reason here, Shade. Starter Keon Zipper unfortunately lost in the spring. He's out for the season.
Yeah.
It's believed. Jonathan Odom, their number 2, he got hurt in the spring, Shane. He may not be ready for the season opener. I think they anticipate he'll play, but they don't know when he'll be back. Dante Zanders he's the only guy that's really done anything in college. And then they got a couple other guys, Arliss Boardingham, Scott Isaacs, Hayden Hansel, and Andre Savinia, but none of these guys have made any kind of impact in college football. So, huge question mark for the second year in a row is the tight end position, which with this offense, at Louisiana at least, they like to go 2 tight ends. I don't know if they got 2 tight ends they can put on the field.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy because Florida's had some dudes come through there, some of the best tight ends, and they've kind of went through a little drought here last 5-10 years. They need, well, I guess Pitts was the last one, but since then it's been it's kind of a desert. So I'm sure Billy will find a few, but hell, he's going to have to orchestrate something here. Maybe put some weight on one of these receivers that ain't making it.
Or slim down one of these giant offensive linemen.
That's right. Get one of those 6'7" bastards out there. Just get a jersey on him. Let him go out 5 yards. You just need him to block.
All right, ranking the defensive position group, Shane. I'll go with defensive back as the best. This was tough. Because across the board, there's questions at every level of the defense. But I like the group we got at defensive back. Jason Marshall at corner, former 5-star. Jadon Hill, he had a nice bounce back last season. Kamari Wilson was the highest rated signee 2 years ago, so it could be a big breakout season for him. Jalen Kimber, the former 5-star, I believe he was, transferred from Georgia. Miguel Mitchell, Jadarius Perkins was, I believe, the number 1 junior college corner 2 years ago, and Devin Moore. So we got some talent. Also adding that transfer from Michigan, R.J. Moten, and then the number 7 corner, Jakeem Jackson, the number 8 safety, Dejon Johnson. So a lot of talent. This is a very deep defensive backfield, and I think that's kind of what gave him the edge, in my opinion. I think this is the unit that we're best positioned to have some depth on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, and so at times last year, that's what got him in trouble. So I think being able to rotate some of these guys, I think that's a big plus. So again, it's not a whole bunch of A-plus talent, but it's a lot of good talent that they can keep rotating.
Right. Now, next I got linebackers, Shane, headlined by Shamar James. He was freshman all SEC last season, came on strong.
Stud.
Derek Wingo, Scooby Williams, Justice Boone, solid players. And then a couple of transfers. The guy from Ohio State, Taraja Mitchell, Manny Nunnery from Houston, and Deuce Spurlock from Michigan, as well as the number 32 linebacker recruit in the country, Jaden Robinson. So it's another group where we got some star power, we've got some depth, but we got a lot of questions because a lot of inexperience in this group.
A lot of inexperience, but man, you got some dudes here. I like that James kid. He's definitely going to be playing on Sunday one day. Mm-hmm. That kid came out of nowhere. So again, this room, we need another one, maybe two, to step up and kind of fill that role.
Mm-hmm. Now, so that means last I got the defensive line, Shane. Princely Umanielian led the team with 4.5 sacks last season. He's back. I love Desmond Watson, a big 415-pounder, Shane. I think maybe slightly overrated by everybody just because of his size, but hey, he's on the field. He's playing. He's not
Has
running
he
out of
slimmed
gas
down
there.
any? Do you know?
Every offseason, Shane, he's in the best shape of his life. He's probably down to 413. You know what?
He's a big old boy, man. He eats up a lot of blocks, but he is fun to watch, especially if he can get him a fumble, you know?
Exactly. Chris McClellan is back. He was a high-rated freshman last year. Tyreek Sapp, Jalen Humphreys, and Jamari Lyons all back. The transfers, Cam Jackson from Memphis, Caleb Banks from Louisville. And then here's where they're loading up, Shane, again, to Billy Napier's recruiting, really trying to beef up this defensive line. The number 5 defensive lineman, Kelby Collins. Number 17 defensive lineman, Cameron James. Number 23 defensive lineman, Will Norman. 38 defensive lineman, TJ Searcy. And number 41 defensive lineman, Gavin Hill. So it's tough to come into the SEC and play as a lineman, but when you sign 5 of them, Shane, you count on at least 2 or 3 of them to get you some reps. You know what?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so last, the specialist, Shane, punter, Jeremy Crayshaw. I just assume he's from Australia. I don't know that for a fact. Kicker, Trey Smack. He's a true freshman, All-American. And they also bring back walk-on Adam Mikhailic, but he was 14 of 21 last year, and in the spring game hit a 52-yarder and a 48-yarder. So a little bit of a competition at kicker.
Yeah.
It's good to have options back here.
May get him a scholarship in practice, you know. One of them sweet YouTube videos you see every now and then. Break your heart, you know.
All right, the top 10 Gators, Shane, as they would be rated in the NCAA football game if it was to come out this year. I'm going with our guy Trevor Etienne, Shane, breakout running back, 93 overall. And a lot of people are saying, what the hell, Montrell Johnson's better. Well, he's number 2 on the list, Shane, 92. So I'm splitting hairs here. I had to put one above the other. That edge defender, Princely Umanielian, I gave him a 90 overall. He's a good player. Linebacker Shamar James, 89 overall. Ricky Pearsall, 88 overall. Cam Jackson, defensive lineman transfer, 87. Left tackle Austin Barber, giving him an 85. Jason Marshall, the corner, 83. Kamari Wilson, an 80. And Big Dez Watson up there. I give him an 82 because, oh, man, how can you not like the Big Dez? You know what?
Oh, man, I'm telling you, and the kid's going to pop one day. I truly think, I mean, he's a star ready to be let loose. You know what I'm saying? So I just hope he comes in at game ready, you know, right out of the gate.
I can't imagine the NIL offers he gets down there to, you know, all
Can you imagine? I would like to see the material that our boy Gary's got about 2 sheets full of information on this kid. So I'd like to keep talking about him, but I know in the first CBS game, we're going to be wore out with how big Mr. Watson is, you know?
All right, so biggest camp question, Shane, for me, you know, in the spring game, the defense looked incredible. Now,
Yeah.
is that because the offense is awful? I mean, I don't know. But I think the success of this team is going to be dictated by how far this defense can go. So that's kind of the biggest camp question for me. Is this defense legit? How quickly does the offensive line come together with all the new pieces? And then Graham Mertz, does he take some strides following spring, going into his second camp as a Florida Gator? He's experienced. He doesn't need reps in practice, but he'll need reps with the, just the unit and in the offense.
Yeah, me, man, is leadership. Anthony Richardson's off. Obviously, he was a big part of that Florida team last year. But who steps up, man? We got a clean slate here. We got a new room. We got a lot of young athletes out here that need some guidance. I'm just curious. They haven't come out with the list yet. We don't know the 3 that are even going to show up for SEC Media Days. But I'm interested really to see who they pick because, those alpha dogs are going to be the ones that are steering this ship. So I think that's one of the biggest questions. It's just is behind the scenes. And I know that's not an easy answer or, an easy thing to look for. It may be something that doesn't show itself until week 10. But, again, it's something I'm looking forward. And then, again, offensive line. A lot of new names, a lot of new pieces. I like what they did last year. I like to see that continual growth with offensive line because you got good coaches that put these kids in the right spots, and I think they'll be fine. They got a hell of a running back room, but if you ain't got the holes, you ain't getting anywhere. So that's I guess my second biggest question.
All right, Shane, the best part of these previews, let's break down the schedule. Win, loss, or toss-up for them Florida Gators. And as always, we're doing this as Florida Gators homers. So we're trying to think what does we all get crazy.
Yeah.
Fans, that's short for fanatics. We're all fanatics out there for our team. But we're trying to be reasonable, but also, hey, if it's a 50-50 tie, we're giving it to the Gators here. So let's go over the teams, Shane, the games that Florida fans, I think, are looking at the schedule and say, these should be wins. And let me know you disagree with any when I get at the end here.
Okay.
Skipping the first game, sorry. But McNeese State at home, come on, that should be a win, right?
Oh, my God. I'm just now looking at the schedule here. Yes, McNeese, definitely win.
Tennessee, I realize Tennessee, big bounce back, but hell, it's in the swamp. Well, own them. What is it, 18 of the last 20?
Yeah.
Something like that. Florida has won. I think fans, they got this one circled, not a gimme, but I think it's one they anticipate the Gators should always win.
This is, you brought Billy in, and there's a couple of games that you were expected to win, and there's a couple of games you can't wait to win. Expected to win is against the Tennessee Vols, and it's tough seeing them Volunteers down there. But today I'm a Florida Gator fan, and when I'm looking at the last 18, like you said, 18, 20, the only 2 games you beat us was almost miracles. It was down to a final possession kind of thing, or at least
and both
one of
in
them was.
Neyland Stadium.
Yeah, good point. So I think if you're a Florida Gator fan, you're expecting a win here.
Yep. So obviously Charlotte the following week at home, easy win.
Easy win.
Vanderbilt, I don't care where that game's played. You're expected to beat Vanderbilt every single year.
Yep.
Arkansas at home November 4th. That Florida fans should be expecting to win that, I think. And at Missouri, again, I realize that's been a tight contest, and we're high on Missouri, but I don't think there's any Florida fans that think they should ever lose to Missouri, regardless of where that game's played. Would you agree with that? At Missouri should be a win.
Florida fans think that should be a win, Mike. And I want to stop you there for a second. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 wins right now.
Yes.
As a fan. What does Vegas have their win total this year?
5.5.
Do you see why I'm so high on the Florida Gators? Like, don't wait till the Utah game to put your money on these dudes. Or maybe wait. I'm telling you, there's some wins in here. There's definitely some wins.
Right, and given Billy Napier's track record, Shane, of winning one-score games, we got a lot of toss-ups here.
Yeah.
His history indicates we'll win more of these toss-up games than we'll lose. So I think you're 100% right. Let's get to the games I have listed as toss-ups, Shane. At Utah.
Yeah.
At Kentucky. Again, I get it. Utah, whatever, Pac-12, blah, blah, blah. That's garbage. That's a garbage league. And it's on the road. That's why it's a toss-up in my mind. At Kentucky, I mean, you could convince me that Florida fans expect a win there, but Kentucky's kind of owned them, and it's in Lexington, so that's why it's a toss-up for me.
Yeah.
At South Carolina, you beat the brakes off of them last year, but last time you were up there in Columbia, I realized, that's got almost nothing to do with this year, but they beat you pretty bad up there. So to me, that's a toss-up, unless we just repeat what we did last year. You could convince me that should be a win. And then Florida State, last game of the regular season. It is at home, but all the hype, the rivalry, and all that, to me, that's a toss-up as well. Any of those you disagree with should be a win or should be a loss?
Well, maybe the South Carolina one. I get. Hell, I'm just, again, as a Florida fan, it's like when I'm looking at Kentucky and South Carolina, I'm expecting a win. When I'm looking at Tennessee, yeah, it's a tight game last year, but I'm still, it's Tennessee. We've always beat them. Yeah. So I think you could argue toss here on a couple of these games, but I see your point. Kentucky, it's been a battle with them, especially in Lexington, and then South Carolina. A
lot of that, to me, Shane, has to do with where the game's played. If these were in Gainesville, I would say should be wins. And I also think, trying to look at it a little bit through the eyes of Kentucky, they're basically their season is made or broken by beating Florida because they, it just seems like the years they're good, they beat Florida. They get over that hump, and the years they don't. So it's like their Super Bowl. It's in Lexington. To me, that's a toss-up.
Yeah, I'm with you here.
So that means,
but that being said, Mike, even if you forget what Billy has done in one-loss games, if one possession games, if these two tosses, if he wins two of them, if he just repeats what he does last year, you got 8 wins right there, Mike.
Mm-hmm. And then so that means I only got 2 games where I think Florida is unlikely to win. And that's first one, of course, Georgia in Jacksonville. But hell, Shane, I don't think, obviously Florida and Georgia fans know this game well, but Florida was giving them a run for their money last year, late in the third quarter. I'm just saying. So crazy things happen, and this was national champions versus a losing team. And it was I think the score was like 28-24 in the third. It was less than a touchdown game. So crazy things happen in rivalry, so can't completely write that one off. And then at LSU, another one. Florida has had a hell of a lot of good fortune in Tiger Stadium. Of course, that's just an incredibly difficult place to play. And, I think the world of LSU. So that's kind of why I'm chalking that up as a likely loss. Would you disagree with any of those?
No, I wouldn't. And honestly, looking at those two, that makes that Arkansas a little bit more intriguing just because it is sandwiched in between there. So you definitely can't sleep on that one. So, that's a tough little stretch right there.
All right, Chase, so let's go through it week by week and predict how the Florida Gators are going to fare this season. And remember, we're doing this as Florida homers, which means get the hell out of here, Utah. We're beating that ass again. I get it. They get all this hype. This guy, Shane, I retweeted him just so Florida fans could kind of laugh at him, but he was a Utah writer, and he's breaking it down. He says Utah's going to win 48-14 or something crazy, and he was going through, they got this guy, they got that guy. Well, we didn't know how to stop the run. Well, now we do, blah, 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 blah. I mean, it was kind of cute the way he was breaking it down, but I got no respect for Utah. Give me a win there.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to see Utah on TV every now and then because other than that, we ain't watching them, We ain't watching their basketball teams. We ain't watching – I can't ski. I ain't going up there. There's nothing fun or enticing to me when you say Utah. The only thing is I like Point Break, and Keanu Reeves, he ain't on this ball club. So I'm going to tell you right now, the Florida Gators going to start out with another victory. I told you last year it happened. I'm telling you it's happening this year. Florida's going to shock the world right out of the gate, and this is when it's going to be too late to put money in Vegas. So give me an easy win here.
There is a sandwich shop. They sell meatball sandwiches. Best I've ever tasted. Would you go get me two? Come on, partner. Two. Thank you. Utah, give me two.
And just imagine, Shane, all off season they got to hear about how they suck, and they're going to do this, they're going to do that, and Utah's going to whoop their ass and all this. I don't think they're going to be ready. You know, they say their run defense and all that's improved. Well, I doubt they got one single guy that's as big as any of these offensive linemen I just rattled off on the Florida Gator roster.
Mike, you know my favorite saying, right? 2 years of playing these boys. How many wins in Florida Gators going to have?
2.
Give me 2, Utah. Give me 2.
All right, so the next week, Shane, McNeese State, the home opener. Give me a break. It's a pick-your-score type game. Gators should win by 50, 60 points if they want to.
Oh, perfect placement, too. You're coming off that high. You get a chance to kind of fix some problems, fix some holes that you had. This is another easy victory for the Florida Gators and prep for that Tennessee Volunteer game.
Right, and that could be the game that defines the season, Shane. We can get off to a 3-0 start. No one will see it coming. The ceiling will be raised, and maybe we start to see some of that shades of Kirby Smart year 2 at Georgia, Nick Saban year 2 at Alabama. They're great years they had. Maybe we get that, Shane. If old Joe Milton's down here overthrowing receivers, he's throwing it into the stands because of the heat and humidity. Them Rockets are stuck in the the swath that is the air down there in the swamp.
Yeah.
Give me a break, Tennessee. You ain't beating them Florida Gators in the swamp. Florida, we said it best. I mean, they dominate this series, and they particularly dominate it. Even if Tennessee's got like a 3-touchdown lead with 30 seconds left, they still find a way to come back and win the games in the swamp. Particularly has been a real house of horrors. I think this is going to be so much pressure, Shane, on them Tennessee Vols. No pressure on the Gators. Give me them Gators to beat Tennessee to go 3-0.
Buddy, this was a tough one. I still can't believe you ain't got it as a toss when you're looking at them Vols. One thing that scares me about them is can the Florida Gators keep up? You know what I'm saying? Even if Joe Milton has a couple of bad drives, a couple of good drives results in 14 points. And is this offense going to be able to duplicate that? They did it last year, and a lot of that had to do with Anthony Richardson. They ain't got him anymore. So it is in the swamp, and again, as a Florida Gator homer today, we don't lose to the Tennessee Vols. Give me another victory for the Florida Gators. Here's what concerns me, man, is because, like you said, this is the first big test. I don't want to say concerned because, again, I'm still trying to – it's tough, Mike. This one's a tough one because I'm trying to be a Florida homer here. But Joe Milton – most likely isn't legit if I'm looking at it through a Florida lens. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. This may be the game where we start seeing some real quarterback controversy for the Tennessee Vols. That's my prediction. The swamp is not a fun place to play, man. It's dangerous. It's loud. It's chaotic. And if we're sitting there at 2-0, this place is going to be absolutely bonkers, man. This will be a hell of a matchup and a hell of a game. But I think when you're looking, it's tough. You look at history and you say history doesn't matter, but sometimes that gets between your ears. It gets between my ears. And hell, I turned 41 this year, Mike. We've lost more to Florida than we have won. So I'm used to losing. And so I think that's why I'm going to give Florida Gators the edge as a homer. There's no way we lose this year.
And do you think Florida will be ranked, Shane, if they beat Utah and Tennessee right out the gate? Because I would argue they probably deserve to be.
deserve to be, because there's 2 top 25 teams you beat. You know what I'm saying? So,
Right.
and I don't even think it has to be like a barn burner. I mean, you could just barely beat them, win by 1. I still think you're going to be recognized as a top 25 program here. And again, the recruiting, man, that's going on in the background. You're showing glimpses of what the future for the Swamp's going to look like. So, yeah, you're sitting pretty here in September.
Yep. So that means the following week, Shane, I mean, we're sitting here saying they're top 25. No shot they lose to Charlotte. Give me another win there. Go to 4-0.
Yeah, don't sleep on them. It's not going to be a, don't. What is that? What was the team that came up there last year? Was it South Florida or something that kind of gave them a little bit of run? This is kind of one of those programs. You can't get too cocky if you're coming off a big win. But I think again you start out 4-0 here.
Now, here's the tricky one, Shane. First, SEC road matchup in Lexington. I've already said it. I think that's the Super Bowl for the Kentucky Wildcats. I'm very high on Kentucky. They have kind of owned Florida. Billy Napier really needs to flip this series, Shane. I've given them a couple toss-ups already. I think I got to go the other way on this one. Give me Kentucky 4-1 still. I think most Gators will be happy with 4-1.
Yeah, this is again a tough one because a lot of question marks on the Kentucky side, and they've kind of had your number. Yeah, and one of the things I think Kentucky's going to be really good at is stopping the run. Another thing they're going to be really good at is passing the ball. I think that man, this is a tough one. I think I'm glad you put it as a toss because I think this one's going to come down to the freaking wire, and I'm gonna give the edge to Kentucky for home field advantage here. I think the problem is Florida, even best case scenario, there's a couple games on this schedule that are going to go the opposite way. I'm not going to sit up here and blow smoke and tell you they're going to go 12-0 because they're not. There's going to be some games that they drop. It may be the Tennessee game. It may be the Kentucky game, maybe the South Carolina game, the Florida State. Those are my toss-ups. I think they lose 2 of those. So this is the one I'm going to pick here, Kentucky.
Yeah. So big revenge game, Shane. Vanderbilt comes to town. I mean, it would just be an absolute disaster if Billy Napier goes 0-2 against Vanderbilt. I can't see it, Shane. This won't be the most meaningful game for Billy Napier, but it kind of is for his career at least. You just cannot afford. He's going to have his team locked in. Give me a win over Vanderbilt at home.
Man, I am so torn. I know they're going to beat Vanderbilt. That's not the problem. But I keep going back to September 16th, man. I just don't know why you don't have that as a toss. I get the perspective, but knowing these two programs and where they're at and the trajectory of their – I'm afraid I missed one there, Mike. That one – have we done that? Have we gone back in time?
No, but there's always an opportunity to do it.
As many times Florida Gators have gutted me, I'm going to gut them. Go back September 16th. They lose by 1. Sorry, I said it. And it's not. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm not trying to be ugly. But I do truly think that there's a couple toss-ups on this game that they lose, and I think Kentucky's the one that scares me because they've done it often, and then the Tennessee one. And the reason the Tennessee one scares me is because the way that team plays, the way Tennessee plays and the way Florida plays, they can't just go toe-to-toe. What Billy tried to do last year was slow these guys down and establish the running game. And, Heupel didn't have it. Next thing you know, it turned into a shootout. And if that happens, man, I don't know if they've got the power on the outside and in the quarterback room to compete with Tennessee Vols. So, dude, I hate to do it, guys. I tried. Oh, my God. I tried so hard. But that's my losses, Tennessee and Kentucky. Those are the 2 losses on the tosses.
Well, and not that 4-2 is a great midway mark, Shane, but I think Florida fans would not freak out over that either, given all this negativity that people are saying about their program.
Yeah.
4-2, again, not awful by any stretch. So how about the next game, Shane? At South Carolina, you dominated them, and South Carolina might have something for Florida, up their sleeve, so to speak, with special teams, Beamer ball, and you never know what you're going to get out of Spencer Rattler. If he's red hot, you're not winning in Williams-Brice Stadium, Shane. But you know what travels? Running game, offensive line. South Carolina cannot stop the run. I think that's one of the biggest issues that no one's talking about. I don't think South Carolina's going to be able to stop the run this year, and that is disaster in conference play. So give me the Florida Gators, a little bit of an upset here on the road. I'm up to 6-1 on the season.
Yeah, and I'm going 5-2, Mike, and the reason is just what you mentioned, the running game. And this is why I went back and forth with South Carolina and Tennessee here, and I went with Tennessee winning because South Carolina, I don't think can stop that run if they get going here. And that's dangerous, man. That is a dangerous 1-2 combo, and that hurts you. When you're talking October, we got some bruises, man. We got some sore players, and if they just keep hitting you with 1-2 punch, maybe even 1-2-3 punch with this running game, that could be deadly. So I like Florida Gators here.
Yep. But 2 weeks to prepare for what could be the number one team in the country, Shane, them Georgia Bulldogs in Jacksonville. I'd love to spin this in Florida's favor, but until further notice, Shane, I'm not picking against Georgia unless we're talking the spread in any matchup in the regular season. Give me Georgia and just kind of go into that game hoping your team can keep, make it a ball game going into the fourth quarter. Maybe you could pull off some kind of miracle.
Well, and I will say this, out of all the games Georgia played last year, there was a handful that were, weren't just blowouts, and this one was one of them. I felt like Florida played them tough. I feel like they'll play them tougher this year. The defense really did. I mean, they did pretty much everything they could. Yeah. But, again, I'm with you here. Until further notice, we got to go with them Georgia Bulldogs.
Now, I'm really glad you paid attention to this game, Shane, and noted Arkansas sandwiched between Georgia and LSU, because I think aside from Tennessee and Kentucky, I think this Arkansas game is the most important on the schedule if we're talking for Florida to meet and exceed expectations, because this could very easily be a backslide here. KJ, Rocket, they get hot. You can't stop them. Maybe Georgia, beat the hell out of you or at least beat you physically.
Yeah.
This is a nightmare matchup here. You got to hope that the home field crowd carries you and you can beat the Arkansas Razorbacks. I'll give Florida the edge, Shane, but I'm very, very nervous about this matchup here for the Florida Gators. I think this is one of the biggest games on the schedule. So give me the Gators. So I'm up to 6-2, but scary game right here.
Yeah, I think this one is the most dangerous game on the schedule, and it's easy to pencil in a win here as a Florida homer, but when you really start thinking about it, like you said, Arkansas's got some dudes, man, and if KJ's playing, if he's balling out, if Rocket's balling out, I mean, does your defense have enough to keep those boys under control? And I think the biggest question marks is on the Arkansas defense side. Can they stop this running game? I think that's what it boils down to in this matchup, and I'm going to give Florida the edge just because it's one thing to have one good running back. It's another to have two. And again, I think that's what you do. You there's reason you bring in all this girth up front because you're leaning on them. They are going to become bulldozers, and it may not be pretty. It may be 3 yards, 4 yards at a time, but it's going to keep moving the chains. It's going to keep your defense off the field, and that's how you're going to win games late in the season. So give me a Florida win here.
Yeah, and most importantly, keep KJ Jefferson off the field.
Yeah.
All right, next matchup, Shane. At LSU, rivalry. I mean, crazy things happen. This is going to be a personal game to Billy Napier. He wanted that LSU job when he was dominating down there in Louisiana. They didn't even give him a serious look for whatever reason. Maybe he makes them pay, Shane, but I still like LSU, Tiger Stadium. It's probably a night game. It's always a night game down there in Tiger Stadium. So give me LSU in this one.
I tell you what, we've yet to see. I don't want to cash in on Billy's win over Utah last year as a signature win, but it's coming. You don't know where it's going to be. You don't know who it's going to be. This one right here is the one I've got my eyes on because of how close they always play. Some of the best games I've ever watched were between these two programs right here, and I don't expect anything different this season. So I'm going to give LSU the edge here, but as a homer, I'm telling you, buddy, if I'm going to pick an upset, it's going to be this one.
Man, you hate LSU. All right. Next week, Shane, at Missouri. Again, another tricky game. This Missouri-Florida game has been a lot closer of a series than a lot of people realize. You could easily talk me into Missouri, this defense. Maybe the offense shows some signs of life, and they are a massive spoiler to the Florida Gators. But give me them Gators, Shane. Same thing as South Carolina. Running game travels. Defense travels. I don't know how much to respect Missouri's offense. So I could see Missouri winning it, but I'm taking them Gators to get to their 8th win of the season right here.
Yeah, this is a tough one, man. I kind of miss the old, Dan, Eli getting at each other. I miss the lightsaber days, but this has always been a kind of a sneaky good matchup, and I'm not going to expect. I mean, Florida's got to fight, man. Even in the perfect schedule, you're fighting for your life every single Saturday, and this will be no different. Missouri is tough, especially at home. If you're overlooking it, you're coming off that high of almost beating LSU or even beating them. It's like you forget there's other Tigers, man. So this Mizzou team, I'm high on them. I love them. I think they're great. But one of the things, I guess, question marks I have is, again, that defensive front. Would they be able to stop these boys late this season? So as a homer, I'm going to give Florida the edge once again.
Now, I know you had no respect, Shay, for them Seminoles, and the home crowd down there in the swamp won't either, Shade. But, seems to be more and more people buying the Florida State bandwagon. This is going to be an opportunity for Billy Napier and them Gators to really get some momentum going into the offseason, swing this rivalry back in their favor. But I don't see it, Shay. Give me them no's. It'll be a disappointing way to end the regular
you giving
season.
The nose?
But 8-4 for me for the Florida Gators. Hell, that's a lot better than Vegas thinks they'll do.
Mike, I'm telling you right now, we started this pod talking about punters. We're going to end it talking about punters. I don't know who Florida State's punter is, but you're going to see him plenty of times on November 25th coming out there as the Florida Gators close out the season with another victory. So give me 8-4.
Yeah, so I think Florida fans, again, that's not the standard. That's not what you're going for, but it's a significant step in the right direction, an opportunity to win a 9th game with a bowl win.
Yeah.
I think a lot of Florida fans will be happy with a 9-win season this fall.
Vegas don't think you win 6, and here we got 8, potentially 9 wins here, brother. I think people are sleeping a little bit on the Florida Gators. They're shitting on them all off season. That's been the running joke. But that's what we want. Nobody wants Florida to be good because they're scared of Florida Gators. When they're good, they stop winning as much. And I think that's one of the things, you're trying to keep a thumb down on them, but you can't. They're starting to recruit. They're starting to load up. Billy's getting these boys where he wants. I truly think this locker room was broken last year. I wasn't there. I don't know. But it just showed with the inconsistency. I think we get more of a team play this year, brother. And sometimes when you're playing together as a team, you win. You pick up games that you weren't supposed to win. So right. I think Florida's a surprise this year. And I'd love for them to close out beating up on them Seminoles.
Yes, sir. All right, buddy. Well, you got anything before we hop off the line?
No, man, that's it. This was again, I apologize, Gators. They're like, wait a minute, did Shane just backstab us on Florida Love Show? No, so I just want to be realistic, man. I mean, can it happen? Yes, but I'm still trying to defend it, Mike. I know I'm going to hear it on Twitter tomorrow, but I ain't got anything else.
All right, brother. Well, I appreciate you. As always, I appreciate all the cousins out there. Remember, rate, review, subscribe, do all that. Get you a beer koozie free of charge. That's just our way of saying thanks. We're less than a week away from SEC Media Days. We'll see you there, and we'll catch you on the next one.
All right, see you guys. Go Gators.
see.
Where are you going? Where are you going? Are you going somewhere?
I got all the time in the world, man.
You got time for one more video?